Hi fam, I thought I'd tell you a story about my dad while I was driving down the road. And this thought came in the other day when I was at the YMCA and there was a swim competition. I think it was the Idaho State High School swim competition. And I was up on the balcony watching a little bit of it. And I'm not new to the gym or the pool, but the smell of the chlorine brought back these memories. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder how many of the nieces and nephews know these things about my dad. So in the 80s, I don't think he played racquetball in the 90s. Anyway, through the 80s, my dad was an avid racquetball player. And racquetball was super popular, kind of like how pickleball is today. And as my dad is, very competitive. And he was good. Like, that's Grandpa. That's what he does. He's good at sports. Well, of course, he could only play in the winter. And so the gym, there were two gyms in Twin Falls. One was right behind Dairy Queen. I don't even know if that building exists anymore. And it must have been the cheaper of the two. And then the other one was over by the mall, over by Falls. And I don't remember what that building is now. Anyway, in the dark, cold days of winter, when I didn't want to stay home, I would go to town with Dad and hang out at the gym and watch him play racquetball. And of course, there were other old guys, young guys, sometimes ladies. And sometimes he would pay for me to go swim, or sometimes I would just hang out and do nothing or pretend to do my homework. And then every once in a while, my dad would get a wild hair and he would decide to register for a competition out of town. It was pretty rare. He didn't do that very often. But this one time in particular, I don't remember where it was. It was either Pocatello or Idaho Falls. And I brought this up to Dad yesterday and he thinks it was Pocatello. But when Granny and Grandpa had the old blue van, and it had the conversion queen-size bed in the back. Mom packed us some lunches, and we camped in the van behind the gym in Pocatello for his racquetball competition. And I think it was a whole weekend, so there were at least a couple of nights. And it was, I just didn't want to stay home, you know? I know sometimes I was bored, and I knew enough to gauge the timing of how the games were going, because sometimes Grandpa just skunked his opponent, and so the games would go fast, and then he would go to the next tier of the competition. And sometimes he had downtime and he would go rest or go BS with people or whatever. So I knew how to wander around the gym or wander around outside or whatever. I knew how to kill time so that I was back between his games, so he don't worry about me, because I was 10, 12 maybe, right this second. I'm like, is that normal? I remember there weren't very many other kids in the gyms, in the competitions or at the gym or watching their people play racquetball. Sometimes it was pretty rare. There was another mom with younger kids or something, and she was there watching her husband But most of the time it was just me watching these people lift weights or play racquetball, or if I didn't have a membership at the gym, like when he went out of town to competition, sometimes he could buy me a swim pass, but other times they wouldn't allow it. I was always hopeful for the swim pass. But it was just kind of interesting. And I was like, he hasn't played racquetball in quite some time. He said that the gym membership got too expensive, and then they wouldn't give him just a 3 or 4 month pass. He had to pay for the whole year. And that's understandable. And so he just kind of quit playing racquetball. And I was just kind of wondering how many of the nieces and nephews knew that era of his life, and still like so competitive. And also I got to join, and it was just me. You know, if you have siblings, you understand how nice it is to get away from siblings. Anyway, I was trying to think if there was any other parts of the stories. I can't think of much. Like I guess I was too young, but I kept thinking, when am I going to be old enough to play racquetball? When am I going to be old enough to play racquetball? And of course, by then he was already done playing racquetball, and I never picked it up again. So I think sometimes me and Teresa would go with him, and if there was a free court, we'd hit a few rounds of balls. So sisters, you let me know if you have any of those memories too. But when I brought up the memory to Dad yesterday, he got quiet, which was really interesting. You know, Dad's never quiet. But I said, Dad, do you remember that? He goes, yeah. I think it was Pocatello, and I didn't do so well. I didn't remember that part. That's what he remembered, which is odd. I don't remember Dad not doing well, like ever. He was always good competition, even for the young kids. There were some really young guys that just played hard, and he didn't like to play them. Anyway, so there's a little memory. If there is a memory that you would like to share that maybe not everybody knows about, or, you know, tell us again. Let's share some of these memories. And I hope there's not too much road noise. I use my earbuds, hopefully dampen the road noise. Okay, have a good day. I'll talk to you soon.